Hello everybody, my name is NicholassRivas. I talk about UFC and stuff, and today we're going to be talking about this interesting tweet I saw posted by this fellow right here. Credit will be in the description. He posted this pretty interesting photo that I've just been wanting to make a video about for so long, so let's just jump into it. What if these fights that had close decisions went the other way? How much of that would have changed the UFC history? Big UFC nerd here. I could talk about this for hours, so I'll try to condense it, but let's start off with the easier ones, I guess. So UFC 247. Jones versus Reyes. Everyone and their mother talks about this. Everyone and their mother thinks they have the right opinion. No, they don't. I do. Say Reyes won, John would have not taken his hiatus. I think he would have taken his career a little bit seriously. And seeing how he had this performance with Reyes versus how he had with Cyril Gane, it looks like Jones just was out of it that night. Same with Amanda Nunes and how she fought Juliana Pena the second time. I think if Jones were to lose, it definitely would have put a little bit of a dent in his career, but it kind of is just pushing back the inevitable. I think you would have seen a case, just like Amanda Nunes, where Jones wins back his title in a rematch and he still takes the 3-year hiatus. I can't see a world where Reyes is still champ, going against the people he fought who he was inevitably going to fight if, say, he beat Jones again in a rematch. So, for one, the Reyes title reign would have lasted long, and I just think Jones was on his off night. Again, seeing how he took on the heavyweight number one, I just can't see him being the guy who lost it and then continues to lose it. Using my handy-dandy scientific timeline splitter machine, I'm going to show you who I think would be champ if the decisions were to have gone the other way in these cases. So, I think John would have been the champ no matter what in this case. So call me cuckoo bananas. Yeah. The next one is Islam V Volk.
Short but strong.
So this is a pretty interesting one. I think it's very similar to the Jones situation where it kind of pushes back just the inevitable. I think if Volk were to beat Islam, there's a pretty good chance he might get a rematch immediately. Maybe Islam doesn't get the rematch, but I don't think he fights Beneil or Charles again. Or not immediately. And I kind of think, given that Charles and Beneil happens a little bit after, I think I can't see a world where Charles tries to fight Islam off a losing streak. I can still see them throwing it at Benny. I can see how the timelines match up. Islam, albeit, did come back in a quick turnaround to fight Volk after beating Charles, but he also didn't take much damage. So I think in a world where Volk beat Islam, Islam did take a lot of damage. We still see a world where Islam is waiting till October. Don't think he's going to fight Charles and Beneil. So I think Volk and him are just going to rematch. And I think Islam takes it in the rematch. Again, very close, but Islam was looking like the guy who had more of the control. And I think also Volk really adapts and gets better. So it's a close one. But I think we kind of lead up to where we are. I can't imagine a world where Volk would fight Islam immediately after fighting Islam. I think he still fights Yair. Given the timeline we're in, it seems like Volk would not want to not let his featherweight champ just kind of go and sit, especially if you have an interim. I think we kind of end up in the same position, slightly different. I think Volk beats Yair, and I think that come October, I don't think he fights Islam, so there might be an interim, but I think inevitably Islam and Volk are going to continue to fight each other, because after this Islam versus Charles fight, I can't see a world where Charles wins. I know it hurts. So I think we're just ending up in the same position. Islam v Volk again, but this time Volk a champ, and maybe Islam an interim champ. It's hard to fully tell. I do see that Charles fight happening regardless. I do see Volk fighting Yair regardless. So yeah, I think it's a world where maybe they fight again, but that's already going to happen, I think, and I just think that Volk would have the title. Now, different mindset, different world we're going into, and I think Islam may lose a lot of credibility, maybe some even sanity, but given that the lightweight division is stacked and there's a lot of people that can take this, I think that Islam kind of has a hold on this, given his popularity and Volk's popularity and Charles' popularity. I think we're going to kind of see these guys in rotation for a bit, unless Justin Gaethje steps in or Beneil gets a win. But either way, I just think it's going to be the Islam Volk show just for a little bit longer in this time period that we're in. So I think it's delaying the inevitable. I think Volk just has the title, but it's not going to be that long before Islam takes it back. Probably a cop-out answer, but I think Islam is still a winner in this world. Next one is one with a little bit more teeth. I think this is the one that gives me the most whoa from the pictures that this guy posted. This is the one that gives me a lot more. This is interesting. DJ versus Henry Cejudo. So we all remember this fight. And we also remember the aftermath if you're a big UFC fan. You know that DJ was on the cusp of getting cut, not because of his lack of winning, but because he was winning so much. Now, when he went against Cejudo for the second time, it was a razor-thin decision that led to Cejudo being the new champ for a division that hasn't seen a champ in such a long time, and basically saved the division because Cejudo eventually fought TJ Dillashaw, had a beautiful fight, really brought the masses to the division of 125. So, can DJ in this world where he wins still be champ? I don't think so. Not because he would have lost, but I don't think he would have fought TJ because TJ was being kind of a hardhead. He did eventually fight Cejudo with the same guidelines that it seemed like it was going to be the Demetrius fight. Alongside that, Demetrius was traded for Ben Askren, a fighter who I don't see a world where he doesn't get traded. So even if DJ wins, if Demetrius wins, I see his division getting cut, and that changes everything. There's no Brandon Moreno fight. There's no huge Henry Cejudo versus TJ fight. There's no talk of Figgy going to bantamweight. There's none of this. These people don't exist anymore because of this win. I think that is the most likely outcome. That DJ, even if he won, would still not be a champ. We would still see him at 1FC, and you would miss all of the impact that he had getting his first TKO loss. It's just so much fights we would have lost if this fight never happened the way it did. Cejudo did bring back the division. Cejudo really brought people watching. Cejudo made me a big fan of the UFC after taking a big hiatus away from the UFC. I can't see a world where DJ is champ. In a sense, he still is, but not with UFC. And I can see a world where Henry kind of just fades away because there is no 125. Now, does he go to bantamweight and fight DJ? Maybe. See a world where we don't have another double champ Henry Cejudo and we lose our DJ no matter what. Alrighty, last one. Volk V Max. Unfortunately, does not have a different outcome. Volk beat Max, a pretty long reigning champ. Not the longest, of course, but a guy who solidified himself in the featherweight division. He beats him pretty good, decisively, in the first fight. Barely loses it the second time. Does he get a rematch immediately? Possibly not. But I think it didn't. I think it delays the inevitable. I think Max and Volk are the best in their division, and we've seen this. All the guys who've come and go, Volk and Max usually handle them pretty soundly. And there's a big gap, such as middleweight. Rob and Izzy kind of held that division down for the longest time. I can see the same for featherweight, and I think eventually Volk, if it's just one fight or two after his trying to come back to get Max again, I think he does it. I think he comes back. We've seen Volk. Is there a third fight immediately? I think that trajectory is a big factor, and we don't know a losing Volk, right? Because when he lost to Islam, he still had that moral victory. I can't imagine a world where he loses to Max and he becomes a slump, but it's definitely a factor. I imagine he loses to this guy and he's like, damn, I tried so hard to beat him. If he doesn't get that immediate rematch, you might feel pretty defeated. You might feel like, damn, I don't want to fight the number 3 guy. I should be fighting the top guy. I beat him that first time. The second time I thought I beat him too. Like, that's probably going to get in your head. But all that being said is I think those two guys are such high-level competitors within their division. I can see a world where Volk just plows through people if he doesn't get a rematch, or he gets a rematch and we see the same thing we saw with the Volk Max 3 fight. I think Volk wins soundly in all fights. And again, that trajectory makes a big difference. Imagine going from Max to Brian Ortega, Korean Zombie, Max again. That's a pretty good trajectory to feel good and confident on. That's a pretty good momentum you have there. Does he lose it if it's Max, and then no champ title fight and he fights some rando, or maybe number 5 or 4, or maybe Brian Ortega but a different Brian Ortega? I don't know. It's hard to fully say, and definitely more interesting than I think the others, but I don't see a world where it doesn't happen the same way it does, and I see Volk just keeping his belt eventually, maybe inevitably, maybe a little bit more down the line, but I see Volk still keeping his belt. So I think this is a great place to end here. Thank y'all very much. Y'all are the greatest. Please show some love to the guy who made this collage of photos and subscribe to my YouTube or my Twitters or X or whatever it's called. And yabba dabba doo. Peace.